Hello and welcome back to my channel, Chronicles of a Country Crafter. In this video, I am going to be showing you my work in progress on a blanket. This is one of the kits I got around Christmas time, 2025. This is one that I got to make for somebody in particular. It is the Sunrise Sunset blanket kit from Mary Maxim. So a quick disclaimer, all of me sitting here talking is actually post finishing the blanket because I didn't do stuff along the way as I probably should have, but I took pictures, I took video along the way, so you'll still be able to see my progress as I went through. So when I first opened up this kit, I thought it was going to be one of these where you are changing colors partway through the row to get the design. That is not how this one works, which caused me a little bit of confusion at first. This was a really cool blanket where the way you create the design is by doing a row of single crochet and then a row of double crochet, some with crocheting in the front and back loops. So if you want a certain color to show, you will have a double crochet row where it is covering the single crochet row below it. So each row is a different color. So you'll kind of see as we go. And I'll probably do some voiceover and kind of jump in here and there as we go. So let's go ahead and get started. So I actually did not record myself as I was first starting this because I kind of forgot since I was still pretty new to the filming myself process. But once I did start, it took a couple of rows to figure out how it worked, where you were doing one row in one color and then the other row in the other color, going back to the beginning of each row so you're working the right side every time. You can kind of see how I'm working in the front loop of the row 2 rows below, so that way I was covering up the previous single crochet row. And then as I get to the end of that segment, I start working in the back loop of the double crochet from the row previously, so that way the red will show on the next row once I start doing the red color again. So this helps create the design in this particular pattern. As I was working on this blanket, I knew I had a very specific deadline where I wanted to get this done. I needed this done by middle of June at the latest because it was a gift specifically for somebody, and because I don't live near this person, the only time either myself or my husband were getting together with this couple was towards the end of June. And so it had to be done by then. So any last finishing touches, there was plenty of time to get done. So I had to try and figure out how to make sure I was getting it done in time. I was keeping track of how much time I spent on the blanket, and I was kind of figuring out how long it took me to do each row, and it averaged in that 10 to 15-minute range on average as I was doing the math. So I initially figured, well, with the number of rows that were in this blanket, if I worked on this blanket for 2 to 3 hours every single week, I'd get it done in plenty of time. So I was keeping track of my hours as I worked through this blanket, making sure I was getting at minimum 2.5 hours a week on this blanket to make sure I got it done in time. However, as I got a little bit further in the blanket, I realized my math was not really mathing. And if I would stick with the working 2 to 3 hours every week, it was not going to work out because it was taking me on average longer than I figured based on how long it would take me to do each rows. Based on how long it took me to do each row, I did the math of how many more rows there were and tried to estimate how much more time it would take. My original estimate was saying I could get it done in about 50 hours, which is where I figured the 2 to 3 hours a week in order to get it done. I redid it and it came out a week or so later, and it came out to be even more hours that needed to be done. So I had to up it to a minimum of 3 hours a week. After a little while longer, I did it again and I realized it was just continuing to increase. So I had to rework my strategy. So what I decided I needed to do is figure out how many rows I needed to complete each week in order to get it done in time. I figured I could get by with 10 rows a week, but it would be really pushing that point of getting done in the middle of June with the rows without even thinking about border, tails, or anything like that. So I decided I should do 15 rows per week minimum to make sure I got done on time. One of the things I decided to do as I was working on this project was to weave in some of the ends as I went. You can kind of see in this picture and in this one how there's not as many red tails on each end. I and my husband were kind of weaving some of those in as we went, just to make things a little easier when it comes to the border later. Knowing what I know about the border now, I wish I hadn't, because, well, I'll talk about that when we get to the border. My hands were causing me a little bit more problems at this point as well, because I've been doing a lot more crocheting lately, and I was trying to make sure that I was not fully re-injuring my hands again. So in these couple of clips here, I'm wearing more braces and compression gloves just to keep my hands from getting re-injured. At one point during this, I messed up with color changes, and so I had to figure out what I did wrong and how to fix it. So one of the things I did to make sure that did not happen again was I put stitch markers every 10 stitches along the row, corresponding with the grid lines on the chart. In this way, it was a lot easier for me to keep track of where I was in the row and make sure all color changes happened at the correct times. This is the blanket, all rows completed, red tails woven in. So then it was time for the border. This is when I realized that I should have paid a little bit more attention to what the border was going to be before we weaved in those about 500 tails, because the border is actually done in 2 segments to create an envelope type border to hide a lot of the tails. So in this clip you can see that I'm working on the wrong side, the back side of the work, to create the back side of this envelope border. Once the wrong side rows are completed, then you do have to work the front side rows to create the other half of the envelope. Here you can kind of see the front and the back side of the envelope, and that's going to be folded over after the front and backgrounds are done to seal in the envelope. The front and back sides are slip stitched together, and all of the tails along the sides are hidden within that envelope. As I was going, I would kind of get a segment kind of folded together and all of the tails kind of laid out nice. And then I do a few stitches, and then I get things laid out in the next section, stitch some more, lay out the next section to make sure all of the tails were fairly even inside and there weren't like bunches of tails in one spot and not hardly anything for tails in another spot. There were still tails, even with hiding a bunch of those tails underneath in that envelope border. There were some tails left where I had joined yarn, so that had to be woven in. So there were still some tails left for me to do. There were some that we'd done already, but there were a handful of joins that had not been joined, so I got those taken care of. And then one of my least favorite parts of doing a big project like this is the blocking. Blocking big projects takes a lot of time, and with a big blanket I don't always have exactly the right amount of blocking mat, so I have to kind of just make an outline and make the blanket fit within the outline. And this blanket definitely needed blocking because it was not very straight. All right, it's done. I have it packaged up in this bag. I don't know if this was the actual bag that the kit came in or not, but the blanket fits, so that's why it's going in here. Now it is ready to be sent off. I'll probably either wrap it or put it in a gift bag. Now that I actually know when this video is going to come out, I can actually say who it's for. This is going to my in-laws. Last Christmas, I thought, what would be a great gift that I could do that would be something special that I could give to them? I asked my husband if he thought they would enjoy a crocheted blanket by me, and he thought they would. So he actually picked out this pattern thinking that they would really like it. I hope they do. As of the filming of this video, this is going to be given to them next week. At the time that this video is going to come out, they will have already received it. So I don't know if they watch my videos or not, but it is safe to actually say and put out there that they will be the ones receiving this blanket. So this is another blanket checked off the list of things I wanted to complete this year. I don't know if I will actually complete my goals that I set at the beginning of the year at this point, because it is already June. Life has taken so many twists and turns in just these 6 months since I made my goals for the year, but I'm just going to see how close I can get to them. I'm guessing I probably will not complete 2 more blankets like I thought, but I'll see how close I can get. So I'm excited to see my in-laws' reaction when they receive the blanket. I'm kind of excited to give it to them. Unfortunately, I do not get to be there in person, but I'm hoping to be able to be on a video call when my husband does give it to them. Unfortunately, I was not able to go on the trip to actually get to see them because I had a conflicting trip at the same time. But it is done. I'm glad it's done in plenty of time. And that's it for this video. If you liked this video, please feel free to hit the like button. If you want to continue to follow my journey as I try out different crafts, keep on crocheting, making new things, feel free to hit the subscribe button. And until next time, God bless.